So finding common ground on the phone, you're going to listen for cues because you don't have the visual cues. If you're on a call and you hear a baby crying in the background and you happen to have kids, it's a great common ground statement. You'll often hear dogs barking and people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about my dog." Well, if you're a dog person, that's a good opportunity to be like, "Nah, it's cool, I got one myself." Where bad salespeople screw this up is by lying. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now that you never want to fabricate a common ground situation. You will get outed, and it might work for you once or twice, but it will not work for you every time. And there's no worse feeling than when you say, "Oh, I love the Chicago Bears," and they go, "Oh yeah," and they just start rattling stuff off that any Chicago Bears fan should know, and you're like, "Yeah, I was just totally fucking kidding. I was trying to make common ground with you. Sorry." That will hurt your rapport. Rapport is a flow state. Rapport is something that's going to bleed through the entire conversation, but it starts with one. It starts in the beginning. Without establishing it from the rip, you're going to struggle to get through the rest of your conversation. Rapport is also very delicate. Rapport can be broken for no reason or for a reason that you'll never understand. You ever have one of those conversations where everything's going great, and then all of a sudden the person just flips, and you're like, "I don't even know what happened." Like all of a sudden they hate me and they shut me down and they kick me out the house or the door, or whether it was at work or in personal life, it happens to us, and that's because you stepped in a landmine. Rapport is a minefield, and you're just trying to tap dance through the minefield without blowing your rapport up every single time, because they know you're a salesperson. Okay, we're not trying to hide our professions here, and that's another thing about rapport is that people like people they can trust. So be upfront and honest about what you're doing there. My least favorite tool that bad salespeople use is when they say, "I'm not a salesperson. I'm not here to sell you anything." Bullshit. You're here to sell them something. Be upfront, be honest, be proud about what you're doing. Don't be ashamed or hide in the shadows. If you're ashamed of being a salesperson, you're never going to be a good one. All right, so common ground is one of the steps of building rapport. The second step that we're going to talk about with respect to building rapport is what's called mirroring and matching. Mirror and match. Mirroring and matching is a super, super important part of being a successful salesperson. It's also the part that gets the most twisted and misconstrued by the general public. When I say mirroring and matching, what do I mean? I mean every single person that you're going to run into on a daily basis has their own communication style. You got fast talkers, slow talkers, loud talkers, quiet talkers, close talkers, far talkers. You got people who talk with their hands. You got people who are very shy and reserved. And when you mismatch personalities, it is a very uncomfortable conversation to have. You ever watch a really loud person talk to a really quiet, mousy person? It's awkward to observe. It's even more awkward to be a part of. So mirror and matching means that as salespeople, our job is to represent in whatever fashion the potential customer needs us to in order to be effective in communicating with them. So I am not saying be fake or be false. What I'm saying is that you are not a construct of your tone, pace, modulation, and hesitation. You are you, and your tone, pace, modulation, and hesitation are byproducts of your environment. So in a sales role, when you knock on that door or you make that call, you want to come across at first as even-centered as possible and adjust quickly on the fly to the person that you're speaking with in the moment. Never be more professional or more relaxed than the person you're speaking to. My favorite rule of thumb in door-to-door sales was always don't be the first person to drop an F-bomb or say dude, but don't let the other person be alone if they do. Some strange statistic that came out a number of years ago in one of the sales training classes that I was taking that said that if the prospect curses and then you both curse, there is a 60% higher probability of closing that deal. Now, if you curse and the prospect doesn't, your probability goes out the window, so never be first at it. Now, that being said, don't swear on the phone either, they're recorded lines. Mirroring and matching is all about walking in what I call tabula rasa, your blank slate when you walk in, and you mold your personal presentation to be effective to the person you're communicating with. In sales, our job is to deliver a message that leads our prospect to a mutually beneficial decision. We're selling fiber internet here, folks. We're selling the fastest internet in Florida at a very reasonable price from a very reliable network with a company that cares about the community. You don't have to worry about, we're not selling snake oil. We're not selling we're not robbing little old ladies for their pension funds here. We're providing a service to the community that will improve their life experience. In doing so, it is our obligation to present that message in the most effective fashion that we can. And the gateway to that is all with rapport, mirroring and matching, leveling your tone, your speed. I come from Western New York, and so I have to be very conscientious of slowing down. The fastest speaking people on the planet are Hispanic people from New York City. There's no one on the planet who speaks faster than Hispanic people from New York City. Western New York, 5 hours away, we're the second fastest talking people on the planet. And I train call center people in Western New York calling into Iowa and Omaha and these sleepy flyover states where we would keep a metronome on the desk and say, you need to go this pace, because otherwise they think you're some slick talking northerner who's coming down to take all their money, carpetbagging northerners coming to take all their money. And whether it's true or not, we don't want them to feel that way. So mirroring and matching, it's voice. In person, it's even more than voice. It's body language, it's stance. This is a closed body stance. As a salesperson, you should never stand this way unless your prospect is standing this way, and then you mirror them. Hand on the hip. Subtle things work to build flow state rapport. I watched this really cool video one time, and I've tried it since. There is a phenomenon in rapport building. It's usually talked about in NLP circles, if you're not familiar with that. It's a whole other topic for another time. But when you are having dinner across the table from somebody, it's a fun game you can play. Start to mirror their body language, and when they raise their cup, you raise your cup. When they put their hand on the table, you put your hand on the table, and mirror them for about a minute or two, and then make a sudden gesture. If you do it right, you can influence the other person to make a sudden gesture because they've fallen into a subconscious flow state with you. It's the coolest thing when it works. It's a fun trick to play on your friends, family, or win yourself a drink at a bar. Anyway, that's real. That is scientific. That is something that happens. So as salespeople, if we want to be the best, we need to leverage that. People like things that are like themselves, okay? So as a subset of mirroring and matching, we're going to also engage with what is called parroting. Now, parroting is just like it says, right? What do parrots do?
Repeat back.
Repeat back, repeat back. Right, parrots. They're little recording devices. They don't do what some salespeople suggest, which is repeat and reframe. They don't put their own spin on it. They don't do anything other than parrot back what you say to them. And when you do this, the power here is that you are mirroring what they said. They get to hear their own words out of your voice, and you're not making it about yourself. It's an active listening technique that shows that I'm hearing you, and it buys you time to process in the same breath. But it's literally, they say, oh yeah, we have Spectrum. Oh, you have Spectrum. And you nod, and you just, I hear you. It's a show of appreciation and gratitude towards what they're saying. The other reason it's pretty cool is because people use words they like because they like them. You ever meet one of those like I said people? Well, it's like I said, and we went down, and like I said, and they just say like I said for no reason, every fifth word. Everybody on the planet Earth has a favorite buzzword or a catchphrase, and sometimes, I know I recycle mine because I do sales training for a living, so I catch it, and then I dead it, and then another one resurfaces. I've got 10 in the queue that come up every once in a while, and most of my sales leaders call me out on it when I start using one because they're all trained to listen for it. So we don't need to call people out on them, but we can use that to our advantage to gain familiarity. When I was doing research for building this lecture out years and years and years ago, I was watching Tony Robbins videos because as much as I don't necessarily like the guy, he's clearly doing something right. People buy his stuff. Right. And I was watching this one Tony Robbins video, and he was talking about just this, and I was like, it was very validating for me because everything he talks about was already in my lecture, but you know, he was just a different guy saying it. So it was very top of mind. I was still making calls at the time because I was still in production, and so I made a call that day, and I got one of those like I said guys on the phone. And I'm listening, and I'm writing down my notes, and I was doing real estate prospecting at the time, and I got to the end, and I said, so listen, man, if there was a way to, you know, get that home sold and, well, like you said, get you moved on to, that'd be something you want to hear about, right? And he goes, hell yeah! And you could hear that he felt like he had finally been heard, like no one had ever heard him before. It was just subtle, like using his own words for him. It's not against him, it's using for him. It was a mutually beneficial decision for him to work with me. So parroting is a form of mirroring and matching. Additionally, with parroting, use their name, okay? People love the sound of their own name. Every single person on the planet Earth loves the sound of their own name. And it's not because we're all egomaniacs. Some of us are, some of us may not be. But the fact of the matter is this. Biologically, when you're born, one of the first sounds you hear, and you hear over and over and over again in that hospital, is your name. You come out, you're gross, you're covered in goop, and they maybe wipe you off and hand you over to the dad or the mom, and then they look you in your eyes and they say your name to you for the first time. And in that moment, when you hear your name, it's one of the first sounds you hear. It's like a bird when they attach to the first thing they see, and that's mama for the rest of their life. Your brain takes that and stores it deep in the pleasure center of the brain, okay? What does that mean? Well, that means that for the rest of your life, you're biologically predisposed to getting an endorphin rush every time you hear your name. And that's why people like Mike are always happier, because Mike's a common name and you hear it all the fucking time. But it causes some biological reactions, right? Like when you're in the wild, if I'm walking through the airport and I got my headphones on and I got them unaware so I can still hear stuff, right? I'm not stupid. I don't want somebody to run up behind me and jump me. And I can be walking, and I don't know anybody in the airport. Like, I've been flying for years and I've never run into somebody I know at an airport. It's the weirdest thing. And across the terminal, I can hear someone say, Ryan, and what happens? I go, huh? And I go, oh, that wasn't for me. It causes two things. Number one, it grabs their attention, and number two, it releases endorphins. It makes them happy in the moment. Everyone loves the sound of their own name. Use that to your advantage. When you want them to hear what you're saying next, say their name. Get their name in the beginning. Introduce yourself with your name. It's a commonality thing. Here in the South, it is considered incredibly rude to not introduce yourself when you meet somebody for the first time. You can get away with it in other states, but down here, first thing you're going to do to help build rapport is introduce yourself. You're going to introduce yourself, find some common ground, you're going to match your attitude. And the third most underutilized element of rapport is qualifying the prospect. What do you mean qualifying the prospect? How is that a part of rapport? Well, the fact of the matter is it's 2024, and we went through a pandemic, whether you believe it or not, it happened, and people just don't want to talk to people anymore, number one. And number two, we're all very busy. There's a million things going on. I ain't got time to sit and talk to somebody for 30 minutes in my driveway who I didn't invite over. I'm probably, if you catch me at home, on my way out the door to either work or to take the kids somewhere. Like, everybody's super busy. We don't have a lot of time going on. Qualifying the prospect means it's a show of mutual appreciation for that reality. It's saying to the other person, hey, I know you're busy. I'm a very busy person too. Out of respect for your time, I want to make sure that you're even somebody that I should be talking to. So in the fiber internet game, what does qualifying the prospect mean? It means you're knocking on a door, okay? You don't know who lives at this house. You don't know anything about them. You're just knocking on a door. When you knock on that door, someone's going to answer. If they answer, they might not answer, but if they answer, you get a human being in front of you. You have no clue who that person is when they answer that door. You have no clue if they're the person who buys internet when they answer that door. So the first thing you need to establish is, do you live here or are you just visiting? Because guess what? Here in Central Florida, got a lot of fucking visitors. There's a lot of Verbos, there's a lot of Airbnbs, there's homes that look like hotels, there's family visiting to go to Disney. I mean, you never know who's going to answer that door. And the worst feeling in the world is having a killer conversation and really feeling like you got this one, and then you get to the close and they're like, I don't even live here, dude. Like, I'm just visiting. I'm just too nice to tell you no. Like, I'm not the one who makes that decision. Qualifying the prospect will save you hours, if not days and weeks of your life pitching unqualified people. It will also save your credibility, and it will also potentially save a deal down the road, because while they may not be the right person for this house, if you respect their time enough to cut them loose and not pitch people who can't buy, when you find them at their own house a year from now when we build their neighborhood, they're going to remember that. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember talking to you at Susie's house when I was over for the mixer or whatever. Qualifying is important to show mutual appreciation and mutual respect for each other's time. It's not a hard qualifying, right? Like, all we really need to know is, do you live here, A, and are you the one, like, do you live here is the number one qualifier. If you got a person that you aren't really sure if they're an adult or a kid, like I'm 43 years old now, I'll be honest, it's harder today than it was when I was 23 to tell if someone's 19 or 29. It's not that easy like it used to be. They all look like freaking kids to me now. So you can't say, are you the man of the house? That's crazy talk. But are you responsible for, or do you participate in like paying the internet bill? That's not a hard question if you got a young person in front of you. If you got an older person, they live there, you just skim. You don't have to ask that question. You know, if an older person lives there, unless they're like the deadbeat uncle who sleeps on the couch or something, which you'll find out soon enough. Qualifying just to make sure that they actually live there, because I cannot tell you when I first came here how many times I heard people, man, I had this awesome conversation, and then it turned out that they were just here on vacation for a month and they weren't the decision maker. Well, that's great. You know how you could have saved yourself an hour of your life that you'll never get back? Qualify them. I was training a guy when I first came down here on business, on small medium business soliciting too. We walked into the Hurley surf shop on Flagler Ave in New Smyrna Beach, and he walked right in to this teenage girl working the counter and started pitching her on the internet. I was like, bro, like, read the room. And he's like, well, you know, she's gonna take the information to her manager. I was like, no, she's not. She's gonna throw that out as soon as we walk out and be like, who the hell was that crazy old guy who came in here and talked my ear off about internet like I gave a shit? Know your audience, qualify your audience. Whatever the qualification is for you to be speaking to them, make sure that they're the right person. If you're going into the community solutions, the ROE world, or the bulk world, this is super important. You're going to get caught up pitching gatekeepers if you're not careful about, guard your message and only put it in the ears of the right people, because anytime someone else pitches your message, it's not going to be as good as when you do. So make sure that you don't give that opportunity to people who don't qualify to be prospects. That's the way you want to look at it. Okay, finding common ground, mirroring and matching, qualifying the prospect. There are 7 steps to this sales process. We just took about 25 minutes talking about the first one. And I told you this is going to be about a 90-minute lecture, which means we are not going to take that long on all 7 steps. But rapport is the building block, the foundation, the gateway to the rest of the conversation. It's by far the most important step because it bleeds through all the rest of them. Now, you're going to hear me say this is the most important step about 4 times, but that's neither here nor there. When I'm talking about it, it is the most important step. But rapport takes a minute to talk about, because this is where you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to get better. It's just being the chameleon, being the person who can walk into any room and any conversation and any situation and exist as though you belong. Act like you belong there. Like, the people who are really good at this are usually considered naturals. They're the people who don't pay attention to the rest of this because they're enigmatic, the magnetic personality, the life of the party types. When I was younger, you could probably make that argument. Now I'm old and I'm a hermit and I have kids and I don't care about any of that anymore. So rapport continues beyond here, but it starts at the beginning. So from there, once you have enough rapport, now this whole 30-minute part of the lecture, you got about 30 seconds in the real world to establish enough rapport, and qualified to be able to get them to hear out the rest of your conversation. So we're not talking about spending an hour talking to somebody without getting to the point. We're talking about quick introduction, establish a foundation, find some common ground, and keep it pushing. And then maintain that rapport throughout the entire conversation. Once you've built enough rapport by qualifying and introducing yourself, the next step is going to be building value. Building value. Building value in what? So this is where the men separate themselves from the mice, or the rock stars separate themselves from the order takers. 90% of the people who are selling internet or cable door to door are engaging in a retail sales process. I can say that pretty confidently because everybody who's ever shown up at my front door selling hawking shit is doing it this way. They're pitching you on a bunch of value. They're saying, we got the best speeds, we got the best prices, we got a promo going right now, you gotta sign up today, you can only get it with me right now, so sign up right now, right now, right now, right now. They're value pitching. Value pitching is, I mean, look, there's a place for it in the world. If you're selling widgets or cheeseburgers, or if you're selling perishables or tangibles, value selling can be very valuable. Car salesman, right? Every car salesman, every ad you've ever seen in car sales, every car salesman you've ever gone to, they pitch you on the value of the car, the value, the value, the value, and then whatever deal they're going to get you is how they crush you. We are not going to play that game. Here's what I'm here to tell you. Value selling is great if there's no buyer's remorse and if you don't need lifelong customers. When you're selling a subscription model service, it's not good enough for somebody to make a buying decision today. We need them to stay with us forever. And so the way that you do that is by engaging in a higher level sales technique. So we do still need to build value, but we're not building value in our product here because we don't know what they need yet. We don't know this person, and we don't have one pitch, one offer, we don't want to present like everybody's getting the same thing from us. So the value we're going to create here is we're going to build value in our brand. We're going to establish that our brand is trustworthy and that our brand is something worth knowing more about. And we're going to build value in ourselves as representatives of that brand. And we're going to do it super quick because we're not going to get stuck pitching here. What we're going to use in order to build value is what's called a UVP. It's a unique value proposition. And all that means is it's a quick statement of value that engages the person and piques their interest enough to hear out the rest of what you have to say. My old boss used to call it playing the trailer and not the movie. You know, when you go to the movies, they play the trailers at the beginning, and sometimes they'll play like the one trailer that's like 5 minutes long, and it shows everything that's going to happen in the movie, and you're done with the trailer, and you're like, well, I don't need to go see that movie. I've seen everything that's worth seeing. Thank you for saving me 2 hours of my life. We're good here. That's what happens if you show up at someone's door or make a phone call and immediately say, I got a super killer deal, and it's super cheap, and it's the fastest thing available, and blah, 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 blah. And they say, well, I know everything I needed to know. Thank you very much. You have a great day. And then they go and do their research themselves, and they order online, and you don't get paid for it. So a UVP is our value in the company and our value in ourselves is going to be simple. Like it's something to the tune, depending on which department in sales type you're doing, is, yeah, I'm sure you've heard of us by now. There's value in that statement. It's assuming knowledge. It's saying, if you haven't heard of Wire 3 by now, you've been living under a rock, okay? If you don't know about what we're doing here, then I don't know how that's possible. I'm sure my boss has peppered you with 1,000 postcards, and you see us on social media every day, and I can see here that we've dropped off 32 door hangers before I even showed up at your front door. So like, what are you talking about? You never heard of us. You show value by assuming credibility. You say, yeah, I'm sure you've heard of us by now. And then you add a little more with a prop, like, we're the fiber internet company founded right here in Central Florida. And then more value with the inclusion of the neighbor, like the name drop, right? You say, bunch of your neighbors have already signed up. We installed a couple of people this week. If it's true, don't lie, but it's usually going to be true when you're working out there or when you're on the phone. It's the same thing. A couple of your neighbors signed up. I can see right here. We haven't spoken to you, or you haven't spoken to us, or whatever the situation is. What you're showing, you're building value in yourself as a professional who knows what the fuck is going on. You're going to have a CRM, you're going to have notes, you're going to have all sorts of stuff when you're walking up or making the call that'll allow you to say confidently, you spoke to Mike Del Campo a month ago, or it doesn't look like anybody's ever spoken to you before. That shows that you're not some scrub who we hired and gave a flashy pitch to and sent out on the street and said, crush 1 million doors and bring us back 100 orders and we'll be happy. You're a professional, you work for a professional company that is known in the area and is installing customers, and what do we do? High-speed internet. You can say all that in 2 sentences. It takes about 10 seconds. That's your value. I do not want anyone coming right out of the gate talking about price, talking about speed, talking about customer service, talking about this, that, the third, because it doesn't matter here. That makes you look weak. That makes you look outcome dependent. Weak outcome dependent salespeople have no value. So you deteriorate your own value by being hungry or being thirsty, as the kids would say. So we use a UVP in our opening, so we build rapport, which means they like us and they trust us enough to hear the value that intrigues them enough to continue the conversation, and this is where you're going to spend the rest of your life working on being the best you can possibly be if you want to be a good salesperson. That is creating desire. People make purchasing decisions based upon 2 driving factors. Their motivation and what they want to achieve, what they strive for, what they're hungry for, what they yearn for, and their pain, what they want to avoid in the pursuit of happiness. What is the thing that, oh yeah, I would love to do that, but I'm not willing to do it because of that. Motivation and pain are the 2 driving forces in desire. Desire is a byproduct of motivation and pain, and the best salespeople leverage both equally in order to create an emotional connection to the outcome of the product that they're selling. Okay, that's the keys to the kingdom right there. If you internalize nothing else, internalize that you need to create desire, to create an emotional attachment to the desired outcome for your prospect. Okay, so how do you do that, right? Like, how do you create something like that? Well, this is where consultative sales takes a left turn from retail sales, and this is where we get into question-based selling. So in order to create desire, we don't know these people. We just met these people. So we need to get them to share with us what is their motivation and what is the pain that they've experienced. And for the purposes of Wire 3, we're going to frame this as their motivation is, why do they use the internet? And their pain is, what is the negative in their current provider experience? But you can't come out and say that. You can't say, well, why do you use the internet? Because they're going to be like, fuck you. Who the hell are you? I don't even know you. We've had 30 seconds of rapport so far. They don't know you that well. So you have to get good at asking effective questions. Okay, so before we get to the questions we're going to ask, we need to know what our purpose behind the questions are. So motivation and pain. Motivation, when it comes to motivation, we're going to utilize what's known as the Ford theory. And unlike when I was in high school, this does not stand for found on road dead. Ford theory is one of the older sales strategy definitions. I don't believe it originated in sales. It probably originated in like human psychology somewhere. But the sentiment of the Ford theory is that someone's motivation for making any decision in their life can be boiled down into 4 categories, one of 4 categories. And those 4 categories are family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And if you think about it, your motivation for doing just about anything in life is driven by one of these 4 forces. When we're talking about the internet, it's like, okay, well, family, well, maybe they got, their grandparents and their grandkids live in New England and they only see them once every 3 years and they spend a lot of time on FaceTime or on Facebook Messenger, video chatting with them, and that's the only real reason they use the internet. Or maybe their family really loves to do family movie night and they need to be able to sit around on the couch and watch Netflix every week. Or there's a million different things that could fall into the family bucket. Occupation, there's a lot of work from home people these days, but even more so than that, there's a lot of ways to make money on the internet. There's the ways that we can talk about and the ways that we can't talk about, and we have customers that do both, believe it or not. But nowadays, you can be a podcaster or a YouTube star or an influencer, and you need a reliable internet connection in order to achieve to do those jobs. Those are occupations, right? And then recreation. Maybe you love gaming, or maybe you love posting pictures of, dead cats on the road, or surfing, or whatever the hell. Recreation. The internet was not designed to be a recreational tool, but then the marketers of the world took over and made it into the most powerful recreational tool in the history of the world. Recreation can be a very powerful motivator. Dreams, I dream of being the next Mr. Beast. You don't know who that is, good for you. I didn't know who it was until a few years ago. But, being a YouTube star, being a SoundCloud rapper. My little brother fancies himself a SoundCloud rapper. That did not exist as a dream before the internet, because where the heck was he going to post his audio recordings of his mumble rap? Dreams are obviously powerful motivators. Any one of these four, to the person who is motivated by them, is the most powerful motivator. And it is not fair to our prospective customer for us to assume their motivation without them telling us what it is. What I mean by that is, what do you not see up here as a motivation?
Money.
Money is not a motivation. Okay, we're salespeople. We're all money motivated. That's what we're told from the first day we crawl out of the womb with a pen and an iPad or whatever. Salespeople are not normal. If you didn't know that already, being in this room makes you in the 0.1% of people who heard door-to-door sales and said, yeah, that sounds like something I want to do. Or why not? I'll give it a try. It sounds fun. You're crazy. You're not normal. So don't assume that anyone you talk to is going to be like you in the grand scheme of things. That being said, money is not a motivator, because money is a tool that we utilize in order to get to our motivation. So what do I mean by that? Money, what do you use the money for? That's your motivation. Nobody wants money to have money, except for Warren Buffett. I'm listening to a podcast about Warren Buffett right now, and he literally just wanted money to have money, which is crazy. But most people, you want money to spend on your family, or to not have to work, or to go on vacation, or to fulfill your dream of whatever, jumping out of an airplane into a live volcano. I don't know. But money's not a motivator. If you don't know which of these four categories someone's motivation falls into conversationally while you're talking to them, then that means you have not asked the right number of questions. If you think that it's something, but you're not positive, ask a question to confirm it. We'll talk about how to do that effectively, but family, occupation, recreation, or dreams. Now, when it comes to pain can be broken down into three categories. Time, money, and hassle. It's my little hassle face, David Hasselhoff there. There's no good emoji for hassle, so I had to create one. Pain is what is hurting our ability to achieve our motivation. Pain is, with respect to the internet, it's I'm paying too much. My internet goes down all the time, and every time I have to call customer service, I'm on hold for 2 or 3 hours. My internet goes down all the time. That can be frustrating. Maybe it's not paying too much, but maybe there's a better deal. Pain is something that we want to avoid, something that needs fixing in our lives. money is a pain because if you ain't got money, it's pretty painful. Okay, so general rule of thumb as well when you're speaking with people, time plus money equals hassle most of the time. Like, man, it's costing me an arm and a leg, and I got to do all this stuff, and it's taking me all this time. That's a hassle, right? Like, so if you are struggling to say, man, it could be this and it could be this, chances are it's this because it's both of those. Okay, so what we do is we identify, okay, this person works from home and they're paying too much. We got their motivation, we got their pain, and once we can categorize those, we're going to take them and we're going to lump them into what's known as a tie down. All right, how do we get to here is by question-based selling. So let's talk about questions for a second. In order to identify motivation and pain, you need to become an expert at asking what are known as effective questions. Like I said before, you don't know this person from Adam or Eve. You have just shown up at their door uninvited and unannounced, and then you're trying to create a single-serving friendship. You ever see the movie Fight Club? First rule, we don't talk about it, but in that movie, Edward Norton has a monologue where he talks about when he's talking about his job as an insurance claims person and how he's on the road all the time and flying. And when you sit down on an airplane next to a complete stranger, more often than not, you fall into a rapport state and you end up sharing things with this complete stranger that you would never share with anyone you actually know because they're safe, because they're a single serving friend. You're never going to see that person again. So you can bare your soul to them in that moment where you're in rapport, and then you don't have to worry about it because as soon as you get on the next flight, they poof, don't exist. It's the same concept here. You're trying to create an environment where they trust you enough to share with you things that they didn't ever think they would share. I can't tell you how many times at a door on a phone call somebody's been like, man, I don't know why I'm telling you all this. I don't usually tell people things like this. And it's because I've really spent a lot of time focusing on getting good at asking effective questions. Effective questions, and we're going to lump in here active listening as well. Because you cannot ask effective questions unless you are active listening. This is the part where you're going to go to a sales job someday after this training class, and they're going to hand you a script, and they're going to say, this is your Bible, this is all you're going to say. You need to ask exactly these questions on every call. If you ever go to software sales, most software sales companies have really awful sales training, and so they just have a script and they say just read this and do this, and then you get out in the field and nobody actually does what they were told to do in training because they would never make $1 if all they did was read the words on the paper. That's because you cannot script a good discovery section, a good desire-focused discovery section. The discovery section is where you take off your salesperson hat and you put on your Sherlock Holmes hat. And your mission is to identify these two things. So you need to ask the right questions to get there. So good questions and bad questions. So when it comes to questions, we all know what they call the root questions. Who, what, where, when, why, and how, right? The 5 W's and somehow an H slipped in the back door. Who, what, where, when, why, and how are called root questions because they are the root of all questions that have ever been asked throughout the history of time. Any question that you ask is a function of one of those 5 words. And that's great, but the problem with root questions is that root questions are raw. Root questions are uncomfortable. The people who ask root questions of people they don't know are interrogators or police officers. Who are you? Where are you? Where were you on the night of January 26th or whatever? So like root questions ignore all the good common ground and rapport that you've built up until now, and they will destroy any of that rapport that you have been able to establish. So in order to maintain rapport, we have to ask effective questions. Effective questions have 3 key elements. The first of which is they have a common ground framing. The second one is that they are leading questions. And the third is that typically they're going to be this or that questions. We'll talk about each of these. So common ground framing, what do I mean by that? Well, if I came up to you and said, what do you use the internet for? You're like, fuck you, none of your business, I don't even know you. But if I came up to you and I said, yeah, you know, I know I talked to a bunch of your neighbors, a lot of people around here have Spectrum. Do you have Spectrum or do you have somebody else? Now, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I sound like I'm not just shooting in the dark. It's a common ground framework. Like, this is what I know about the area. Are you like that? You're trying to find the commonality, the familiarity, the sameness. Coming back to rapport. Rapport is the foundation of effective questions, and the only way to get an effective question out of your rapport is through actively listening to what they're telling you. They're going to tell you stuff. The cool thing about asking questions is there's two types of people. There's people, one-word answer people, and there's people who you ask one question and they bare their soul for the next 10 minutes. And as salespeople, initially it's uncomfortable when you get those talkers because you're like, God, I just want to get through my pitch. I just want to close this out. What's going on here? I'm here to tell you, let those people talk and listen, because they are telling you everything you need to get through the rest of this clean with no arguments. Those oversharers are giving you all the secrets that you need in order to close them without even thinking or knowing it. So, leading questions. That's where you, like I just said before, you're going to say, do you use Spectrum or is it AT&T? That's a leading question. It's not saying who do you use. It's saying, do you use these guys or do you use these guys? This or that. This or that is key to not getting yes or no questions, get yes or no answers. If you ask questions that have no yes or no answer, then you will get at least answers that have more meat to them, even if they're one word, than a yes or a no. If you don't provide guidance when you ask a question, it becomes a burden to the person that you're asking. So it's like the old, there's a bunch of different scenarios. We're going to talk about them in the closing process, so I'm going to cut myself off there. So this or that, leading questions, common ground framing. This is where novice salespeople in this environment who aren't good at coming up with questions on the fly lean on easy questions that are candidly almost stepping on a landmine every time. Like, oh, do you have any gamers in the house? Well, the problem is if you're asking that question without any reason, it's awkward. If you ever ask a question and you're like, this feels awkward, it's because it wasn't an effective question based upon this foundation. There will be times where you need a Hail Mary in a conversation. You paint yourself into a corner and you don't know where to go. And you haven't found motivation in pain. And that's where you want to have a couple of canned questions to ask. But never ask a question that the answer doesn't get you closer to your desired outcome. And never ask a question that you don't probably already feel like you know the answer to. If you use that as your guidance in your discovery section, you're standing in this person's house or you're talking to this person and hearing their voice. It's okay as salespeople to make assumptions. I always laugh. Chris Russo, our VP of direct sales, always tells me, I don't like to make assumptions. And I'm like, well, then you're not a very good salesperson. Because our job is to make assumptions and then confirm whether we're right or not. So we're going to say, yeah, I noticed you got a couple of cars in the driveway. So is that you got family that lives with you or roommates, or do you just like collecting cars? If I say, do you live here alone? Now I look like I'm trying to like rob them or kill them or steal their kidneys or something. You need to have a reason for your question, and that reason should be rooted in something that you either see or have talked about so far in the conversation. And that is the guidance to formulating effective questions through active listening. All right, so you get really good at this, which almost nobody is when they first start this style of sales, because you really just want to pitch and close. You don't want to have a conversation with everybody you talk to. When you get really good at this, then you get to go to the next level, which is the tie down. Now the tie down is the gateway to the trial close, but in our environment, it really is the starting point of the trial close. So we go to trial close, we're going to talk about the tie down. What is a tie down? Well, a tie down is probably the most aptly named gambit that I've ever experienced in my life. It's very visual, it's very visceral, right? Like you're tying them down. I picture like tying somebody up and throwing them in the trunk of the car and then driving away with them, which is conceptually what we're trying to do here. What we're doing, a tie down, to give you the definition first and then talk about what it is. The definition of a tie down is it is a statement disguised as a question, that which the only answer to is yes, okay? What do I mean by that? You like money, right?
Of course.
You like candy, right?
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
You're going to hit them with a duh, no shit question and then prompt them to respond with a positive agreement. So when we do tie downs in a sales environment, they are always going to end with right. And if I do my job this week, then you will go to bed on Wednesday night hearing my voice saying, right, 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 right. And it's going to haunt your sleep because that's how you make the money. People want to jazz it up and go with correct. Well, the point is not to sound smart. The point is to elicit a positive response. You're going to take that person's motivation and pain, their personal experience that they've just shared with you, and you're going to tie it up in a neat little bow and say, hey, look, if there was a way to make sure that you and the family could have movie night every Thursday and not have the buffering that you told me you've had recently, that's something you'd want to know about, right? And they're going to say, oh, hell yeah, of course, because it's their story. This is your moment to take all those good questions and that good conversation and summarize their story into exactly why they need to buy from you. And the glory of the tie down is that you get an agreement to their own situation, and then you move right into your close, and and now they've already bought. When you get the yes to your tie down, what they're saying is absolutely I want that, and what you're saying next is then let's do this. And you go into your close, and at that moment, you're going to sell so many people for the rest of your life that you're going to walk away and be like, I can't believe I didn't tell them anything about the product. I can't believe they bought. I don't think they have any idea what they just bought. But they bought their own motivation and pain, and I'm not suggesting that we're going to trick them. What I'm suggesting is don't let your own preconceived notions of what someone needs to know dictate what you tell people, because you are weird and they are normal. They have access to the internet. They can find out everything they want to know about your product. It's publicly available information. What they can't find out without you is how it relates to them and what it fixes for them and why they need it. And that's why salespeople get paid to do what we do, and marketing and advertising does what it does, because people who just need to know the value props are going to buy on their own. People who need to talk to somebody to have them make it make sense to them, this is the way that you do that most effectively. So your tie down is just that. It's painting the picture of if there was a way to achieve motivation while avoiding pain, that's something you'd want to know about, right? And they say, hell yeah, obviously right. The only answer you will get to a good tie down is yes or, well, obviously. The only way you get a no to a tie down is because you screwed it up, or they're an asshole or an idiot. That's the only other reasons that you would ever get a no to a tie down. But here's the next key, and this is why sales strategy and process is important to follow in a linear fashion. When you pull that tie down out, the next words out of your mouth had better be, let's do this. And you better enter into your closing process, because anything you say, because any words other than the close, between the tie down and the close, weaken the strength of the connection to the outcome. If you say, you'd want to know about that, right? And they say, yeah, and you say, great, so we got a promotional offer today of blah, blah, blah. No, you're going to get to that. You enter right into your trial close from there. That is the gateway and the opener to your close. Okay, so what's our close? So good close, it's called a trial close Because in a perfect world, you would close them, they'd say yes, and you'd move on, and life would be great. However, in the real world, that only happens maybe 1 out of 10 times. And bad salespeople will only close those deals. Good salespeople will still manage to maintain a 30 to 40% close ratio in this type of environment. And the way that you do that is by having multiple closes. So the trial close is really just the first close, but it's you're trying to close it. And we'll talk about what happens if you're not successful in a minute. But the way to be most successful is this: trial close. So trial close is made up of a couple key elements. First, we're going to talk about assumptive language. I told you just a minute ago that as salespeople, it's okay to assume. It doesn't make an asshole out of you and me unless you don't follow the right steps. Assumptive language is the difference between, hey, what do you want to do tonight? And we should do something tonight. Or, do you want to go to dinner? And let's go to dinner. If you want to go to dinner, which one do you think is more likely to get you to dinner? Asking or assuming? Here to tell you, the answer is assuming. Point blank period. My wife, actually, real current event story. She has a new friend or mother of my daughter. Her new friend is we'll call it assertive person. She is not afraid to make decisions and to do stuff. My wife is very passive aggressive and loves to talk in maybes and leave doors open for her to Irish goodbye stuff all the time. And she is really struggling right now because her new friend is like, oh, we should get a big tent so that we can do a family camping trip. And my wife's like, yeah, maybe that sounds like an okay idea. And the next day her new friend is like, so I went and bought that tent. So are we gonna have the kids sleep over here, or how are we gonna do this? And my wife's like, I think I need to step up my game because she's going to steamroll me. I'm like, you're fucking A right, she is. She is not a person who's shy or afraid of asserting her will. Now, I'm not suggesting that we be pushy. What I'm suggesting is that we be assumptive. Assume the sale. Your job is not to ask people what they want to do. Your job is to show them how they are going to achieve their motivation and avoid their pain through your product, through your presence at this moment. So assumptive language gets you where you want to go faster. The next step to an effective close is a this or that close. And then the third step is going to be creating urgency and scarcity. I'm going to talk about this. So, assumptive language in this or that close, this or that. In a world where the world is your oyster, where every option is an option, there is no option. Perfect example, again, I hate to, beat my wife up too bad, but she knows I do this in sales training, so she's okay with it. Take my wife to Cheesecake Factory. You ever been to Cheesecake Factory before?
Oh, Lord, yes.
So you sit down at Cheesecake Factory, it's all dark, they got lots of cheesecake. It's a really cool little establishment until they hand you the menu. And the menu is a fucking encyclopedia of food. There's 35 pages to this menu at the Cheesecake Factory. And my wife, who is, as I mentioned a moment ago, a little bit, she doesn't like making decisions, she will sit there and read all 35 pages every single time and spend at least an hour where the waitress comes back 2 or 3 times asking if we're ready to order, and she's still mulling it over until finally she makes a decision and she orders, and as soon as the waitress walks away, she goes, shit, I should have ordered this other thing. I'm like, honey, I don't know if you realize this, we eat 3 meals a day. Like, this is not our last meal unless there's something you want to tell me. We can come back tomorrow and you can order the next thing on the menu. It's not a big deal. Like, I think of food very differently than she does. Every meal is her last meal and she wants it to be the best. I'm like, whatever, we're eating. Like, I do this 3 times a day, it's gonna be fine. If there are people like my wife in the world, then we need to game plan for them, and they are far more common than people like myself, as you mentioned earlier. So, this or that provides an environment where now you're not saying, take your pick of anything. You're saying, do you want to do this or would you rather do that? By combining assumptive language and this or that, you create an environment where you're sounding like you're making a decision for them, but providing them an out in case that's not the right decision. Best example, a real world example that everyone can relate to on this is the time-honored tradition of fighting at the end of every day over what are we going to eat for dinner, right? I leave work, I call my wife almost every night on the drive home and I say, what are we doing for dinner? Now I'm a married man of 10 years, so I'm not stupid enough to ask, what are you making for dinner? I say, what are we doing for dinner? Because I feel like that's a little bit more progressive or acceptable in my household where I'm the only man. But the fact is, every single time I ask that question, I get the same answer. I don't know, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't want to think about it. That's why I asked you. I just worked a full day and I just want to, like, I'll stop at McDonald's. I don't give a shit. Food doesn't matter to me. It's a utilitarian effort for me. She's the one who actually wants to eat something special. But every night it's the same thing. What are we doing for dinner? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. You want to order some takeout? No, we ordered that last time. It's like, well, you clearly know what you want. You just don't want to tell me because I haven't guided you to the answer. So here is marriage counseling tip number 1. This one will save more marriages or relationships or friendships or roommate relationships, whatever. Take this to the bank. When you're getting ready to make that time-honored call or have that conversation, think of 2 things you would love to have for dinner. For me, pizza and tacos. I could eat pizza and tacos every night for the rest of my life. I'd be totally happy. I'm a simple man. And when you make the call, instead of saying, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? You say, hey, honey, I was thinking about it, and why don't we do pizza for dinner tonight? Unless you think tacos sounds better. I promise you, with 100% certainty, you are going to hear one of 3 answers. No, pizza sounds great. Actually, yeah, tacos do sound better. Or actually, I was thinking we would have blah, blah, blah. Because what you've done is you've eliminated the too many choices, you've eliminated the analysis paralysis of the world being their oyster, but you haven't forced their hand at anything. That's the key element to the this or that. If I called and said, hey, I'm gonna pick up a pizza for dinner, okay, we just had pizza last night with no other recommendations because I have presented a yes or no scenario. By saying, let's do this, unless this sounds better, it's saying, I like this idea, but this one would also work too. Now don't get crafty. Don't try to say, well, if I put pizza first, she's more likely to pick the tacos, because you'll be wrong. 100% you'll be wrong. Make sure they're 2 equally viable answers for you. And you can never fight about dinner again. And I will tell you that I tested this in a training class 6 or 7 years ago. I had a guy sitting in my class right there, and he said, his name was Randy, I'll never forget. Randy goes, no fucking way, bro. I was in Western New York, so everybody talks like that. No fucking way, bro. Me and Liv, we fight about dinner every single night. Like, we fight all the time about dinner. It's never gonna work. He goes, I'll prove it to you. And he pulled his phone out in the middle of the classroom, and he called his wife on speakerphone. And she picked up the phone, and he was like, hey, hon, I'm thinking on my way home from work, I was gonna pick up some steaks, unless you think chicken sounds better. And she goes, yeah, no, chicken sounds great, honey, thanks. And I'll see you after work, and hung up. And he looked at me, his jaw dropped, and he goes, I'm a fucking believer, dude. Like, whatever you say, I'm gonna believe from this point forward, because I seriously have not gone a night. He was a newlywed too, so he was like super stressed out about living with his wife for the first time. It was hilarious and adorable and proof in the pudding. Assumptive language, this or that, will get you where you want to get to much quicker than anything else. Now, urgency and scarcity, this is contingent with the this or that, but when you get to, in our closing process, we're doing this for 90% of it. We're assuming the language. We're going to be guiding the customer. We are not order taking, we are recommending. And so we're gonna say, okay, so we're gonna give you your 10 gig service. It's gonna be $80 because you're in our early adopter phase. And do you pay Spectrum for your internet right now, or do you have your own router? Oh, you pay Spectrum for it? Great. So we have our Total Connect Max. This is gonna get you the Eero Max 7 devices, blah, 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 blah. You're not this or thatting them on the packages or the pricing. What you're doing is assuming, walking through and explaining. And when you get to the end, you're gonna say, okay, all I need you to do is put your credit card here. It's all assumptive, all assumptive. Once they give you the credit card, though, this is where the this or that's going to come into play, because you're going to take it back. You're going to say, great, let's get you scheduled. I'm looking at the schedule here. I see there's an open spot tomorrow at 3, unless you think 6 o'clock would work better for you. If you say, well, the calendar's open all week, when do you want to get installed? You're creating that environment where the world is their option, and you're going to get pushback. You're going to get people who say, well, I don't really know, I'm not really available this week, because they think they can do it whenever the hell they want. By selecting 2 times in this or that, and you're creating urgency and scarcity. Look, techs are out here, they're going to be installing people tomorrow at 2, unless 6 o'clock works better for you. Now they're like, oh shit, it's either 2 or 6, which one is it? It's not, well, next week works better for me, it's which of these 2 works. And you'll get no's, and they say, okay, great, well, it also looks like they got next week at whatever, and then you just give them another 2 choices. But never show them the, hey, look, it's open availability because we're not selling enough right now. Let's get out there. Like, you need to control the conversation. Our job as salespeople is to always be in control of the conversation. It doesn't mean to be always talking. It means to be always in control of where the direction the conversation is going. The way that you do that is by effective questions and assumptive language and creating an environment where it's easy. We are salespeople, we are shepherds. We are herding the flock into a mutually beneficial decision. If you herd the flock effectively, they will follow and you will not have any pushback. There's always that one sheep that's going to try and jump the fence. You got to go wrap them on the head, and that's where overcoming objections comes into play. Okay, so perfect world. You go through the close, you assume it, you lock them down, you get them scheduled, life is great, you move on, you made your money, and it's on to the next one. Unfortunately, we live in the real world, not a perfect world, so that's not the way it always is going to work out. When someone says no to you, that's what's called an objection. Now, here's the thing, overcoming objections. Where does this fall in our sales process? Not a trick question. What?
Step 5.
Step 5. It comes after the trial close. Okay, that's because an objection before the trial close is not a real objection. You cannot object to something you don't know anything about. They will try, they will push back, and we will talk this week about how to handle it when they try to object before you've played your cards. But there's no such thing as an objection before your tie down, because they don't know what you're doing. They can guess, they can assume, but they're not allowed to assume. We are. We're the salespeople, they're the prospects. So what we're talking about when it comes to overcoming objections is after you've tied them down and you're going through the close, when they get cold feet and they start to push back. All an objection really is it's the person saying, whoa, 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 you haven't gotten me to that point yet. You haven't raised their buying temperature. You haven't created enough of an emotional connection to the outcome. The better you get at tie downs, the less objections you're going to get, point blank, period, hands down across the board, no matter what you're selling. But in the early stages, you'll get more of them. Objections are things like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I'm not ready to make a decision, or we're happy with what we're doing, or that's too much money, or whatever it is, right? We're going to give you words for all sorts of different objections, but they're all based on a simple 3-step process, a simple framework for overcoming the objections. Overcoming objections starts with empathy. Empathy, tie down, close. Okay, who can tell me the definition of the word empathy? Anybody know what empathy means, or empathy is?
A mutual feeling, or
Yeah, empathy is, the Webster dictionary definition of empathy is a shared emotional state. Empathy is when you see someone crying and it makes you cry. Usually, that's either people you love, or like you can be like my wife, who will cry over, like, I don't know, she'll cry over cereal commercials some days. But empathy is when you're putting yourself in the other person's shoes. It's like when you go see an action movie and you walk out of there ready to just like bomb the world, or like get in a bar brawl or something, or you see like Schindler's List and you want to go jump off a bridge because it's just so depressing and sad. Hollywood is an industry, a trillions and trillions of dollar industry founded in the creation of empathetic situations. Like good movies create empathetic reactions from the audience. That's the foundation of the whole industry. In our world, empathy is showing the other person that you don't think they're crazy without validating their objection. So validating their feelings without validating their words. So we are going to use empathy as our maintenance of rapport when it comes to objections. Objections are hard. People don't like confrontation, right? So for them to drum up the nerve to say, I'm not interested, they've created a potentially aggressive situation, right? There's friction now. You're trying to eliminate that friction through empathy. So empathy is going to usually start with parroting it back. So they say, look, I gotta talk to my spouse. You gotta talk to your spouse. Yeah, and then expressing to them that you feel the same way or would feel the same way if you were in their situation. So it's, oh, you gotta talk to your spouse? I talk to my spouse before making major decisions too. You know, like they say, happy wife, happy life, the cheesiest salespeople phrase that people either love or hate. Or, you know, I'm just not ready to make a decision right now. Yeah, no, you're not ready to make a decision right now. That makes sense because, I mean, obviously, if you were, you probably would have called me. I wouldn't have had to knock on your door, right? But what it is it's showing that you're validating their feelings without validating their bullshit. Because the next thing you're gonna do after you empathize is you're gonna tie them down again. Now, your first tie down that uses their key motivation, their key pain, I call that the howitzer, the big gun, the tank. That's the one that when delivered square on is going to eradicate any remorse or any fear of making this decision. But sometimes there's some, you know, in the movies when they carpet bomb an area, you still got to send in the ground troops afterwards to pay cleanup because there's a couple of insurgents still running around that need to get. So this objection tie down is like your sidearm. You're pulling out your pistol and you're popping off a couple of quick shots to finish off the job. Zombie movies, you know, the double tap to make sure the zombie is dead. So these aren't going to be long, flowery, drawn-out tie-downs because you already did that if you're doing this right. You already shot that big shot. This is going to be, yeah, you know, I mean, talking to your wife, it's important that you guys are on the same page, obviously, but you did mention that she's having trouble with the internet when she's trying to do her video conferences for work, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I did. And you did say you guys are paying $120 a month, right? Well, yeah, I mean, and then that's it. You get them back on that yes train. Tie downs, the power behind getting the yes is what they call the yes set or the yes train. The way the human brain works is through the warming and cooling centers of the brain. You know, for at least 50 years, the nerds in the computer space have been trying to create, you know, a sentient computer being AI, right? ChatGPT is all the rage right now. The reason that they've never been able to accurately duplicate the human experience is because computers are a binary system. They're a system of zeros and ones, on and off switches. And so it's either true or false, on or off, 0 or 1. That's all a computer at its core, machine language, knows. And the best way they've come out with the human brain works in the warming and cooling of centers of the brain. So we're not yes or no, we're yes, but the more times I ping that, the more that it is yes. That's why addiction is a thing. It's why the old saying that if you're feeling bad, smile. It's hard to be mad when you're smiling. You know, it's because we are creatures of comfort, and so the more we do something, the more comfortable we become with it. So it's impossible to duplicate in a black and white true-false environment. The only way they've come up with these GPTs and stuff is massive server rooms, and they'll actually have like a center of the server room that represents when all these switches are on. That's a warmed up center, and they have to just try to fabricate it with these math, not in the human brain. Anyway, there's your 30 seconds of psychology boredom. But what this means for us is that the more times you can get someone to agree with you, the more likely they are to continue to agree with you. Try it with your kids. My kids are masters at tying people down. Like, they were just born knowing to assume, tie down, and just not leave outs. And it kills my wife because she knows I do this for a living, and she's always looking at him like, ugh, your father would be so proud. But like I am, like my 4-year-old is like, Daddy, you remember when we did this, right? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, and you remember when we did that, right? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, so we can go ahead and so I can have some candy, right? I'm like, I know that trick, but I don't know how you like. I want to record them and just use that as a master class on assumptive language and tying down. But by getting them onto this yes train, we are conditioning them to be in an agreeable form state. We're conditioning them to be more apt to say yes. So by getting them to say yes a couple of times quickly, then we go back for the close. And really this should say close on motivation. And the reason it's in a triangle and not in a straight line is because sitting in the middle here is a little trick called verbal advantage. And verbal advantage lives in the middle of the triangle because verbal advantage can spray out on the conversation wherever it's necessary. It's the glue that binds the entire process together. And what it is a quick value prop or a quick reference point statement that's outside of the normal foundation. So it sounds something like this. Yeah, listen, you want to talk to your wife. I understand it's important that, married couples are on the same page on big decisions, but you did tell me that your wife's having some issues with your current internet, right? And you did say that you guys are paying $120 a month, right? I mean, I know in my family, we have a rule that if you're gonna spend more than $500, you check with the other one. What we're talking about here is a monthly subscription that's $80 and there's no contract. So if it doesn't work out, you and the wife decide that you want to go back to paying more, that's your prerogative. So let's do this. I'm gonna get you set up with blah, 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 blah. All I did there was familiarize it, make it a little bit about like a shared experience and give them a value prop that was like, we're not talking about $1 million here. We're talking about an $80 a month subscription with no contract. I didn't say, but you can get it cheaper and you can do this, you can do that, and you can do this. And the only way that will work is if you do it in the context of the rest of this process. Can you sell without doing this process? Of course you can. Anybody who tells you that their way is the only way is a liar, and they're probably trying to sell you something. But if you do this, you will sell more than if you don't do this, and I can promise you that. Empathy, tie down, close. We'll get into more of that when we do the drill down on overcoming objections later in the week, but that's the core foundation. Okay, so we're at the end of the conversation. They've bought, we've closed them up, everything's awesome, we get to follow up. First step of follow-up is going to be referrals. Referrals are a salesperson's best friend. We incentivize referrals here, but regardless of whether you're working here or somewhere else, a warm referral closes about 5 times more often than a cold call. It's a warm handshake, it's a handoff, it's this person trusts me enough to send me your way, and hell, even a cold referral is better than a cold call. At the end of every sales conversation, you should be asking for referrals. You should be asking for them. If you're knocking doors, you can say real quick, hey, I haven't had a chance to talk to your neighbors yet. Do you know them? Would you mind introducing me real quick? I tell you what, if they sign up, I'll get you a free month of service for making the connection. Who's gonna say no to that if they know their neighbors? What you're gonna hear more often is actually they're not home right now, but Billy across the street is home and he fucking hates Spectrum. Let me bring you over there. Getting good at asking for referrals will make this job far less hateful. You're gonna be out there knocking 100 doors in 120-degree weather in Florida in July. Trust me, you don't want to only eat what you're able to knock on. Asking for referrals is the best way to make sure that you're not starving come the hard times. The other part of following up is key metrics, and we're going to talk about this a lot more once you're out there and you're generating your own metrics, but the fact of the matter is this. 2 reasons metrics are important to the door-to-door salesperson. Number 1 is you never know how to get better if you don't know how you're doing. So we track activities, we track successes, we track conversations, we track closes, and we break it all down by these 7 steps so that we can coach and elevate your game to make you more money. But number 2, always track your money. I'm here to tell you today that the hardest lesson I learned in life was when somebody stood in front of me and said this to me and I didn't listen to them, which is nobody cares about your money as much as you do. We all care about everybody who works for us. We all want you to make a lot of money, but the fact of the matter is, if you're not willing to track your own money and we make a mistake, that's on you for not catching it. It does not justify mistakes, and we minimize them as much as possible, but we're human. People make mistakes, so keep a set of eyes on it. Close a deal, track it. We give you a CRM. We will teach you how to use the tools. Be aware of your money, be mindful of your money, and if a mistake gets made, be respectful of the fact that whoever ran commission probably works 90 hours a week and was probably doing it at midnight up against a deadline to make sure you guys all got paid. So we will fix it if we make a mistake, if you catch it, as long as you have corroborating evidence. The only way to do that is following up on your own stuff. Follow up on your pipeline. So follow up, people hear follow up, they think, oh, I didn't sell them, I'll follow up with them next week. That's one element of it. Not everybody's gonna buy the first time you talk to them, set a good follow up. But these two elements get oftentimes ignored when people are teaching new salespeople. They're more important, I'm gonna be honest with you. Getting referrals and tracking your money is far more important than making sure you follow up with somebody who didn't buy from you. Because if you're good, you're gonna sell them. Like, you should sell 80% of the deals that you close should be on the first touch. Okay, this is not rocket science. We're not selling cars, we're not selling timeshares, we're not selling boats. This is small ticket recurring revenue. However, for transparency, when you are in the field or on the phone, when you make first contact, you get 7 days. After 7 days, my inside sales team is going to call them, or somebody else can knock on that door when they show up. So if you want to follow up with people, make sure it's within a 7-day window, or else they're going to be followed up with by somebody, because the organization ascribes to this philosophy, and we're not going to let them die on the vine. So be diligent about tracking your referrals, your metrics, and your follow-ups. And lastly is time management, and this is one that every salesperson throughout the history of time is awful at. I'm only 10 minutes late right now, so I'm not doing as bad as I normally do. Time management. Time management is super important in door-to-door sales. There's only so many hours of the day that the sun's above the ground, and so you only have so many hours a day with people home and daylight in order to make your money. Be very guarded about your time. Spend your time prospecting and closing deals. Don't get sucked into extra activities. Don't let your kids or your family or your whatever life is going to throw at you, take care of it after the sun goes down, because when you're knocking doors, you need to take advantage of every moment that you have, the golden hours we call them, where you're capable of making money. If there's an opportunity to make money, that's what you should be focused on during that time. There's time for the rest of it afterwards. Okay, so I'm sure everybody learned everything they need to know, and you're all going to be super awesome salespeople. So next step is going to be marrying this back to our scripts, and so we're going to talk about that after we take a quick break.